You know, I've heard of doing told opens before, but this is just, I can't even find a way to describe this, I can't even describe the way this show starts. Doing an intro for this video at all would be doing the show a disservice.
たった今、新しい情報が入りました。謎の物体が移動を開始した模様です。繰り返しお伝えいたします。謎の物体が移動を開始した模様です。新しい情報が入りました。謎の物体が移動を開始した模様です。繰り返しお伝えいたします。謎の物体が移動を開始した模様です。目標、速度および進路変わらず、接触。
That's how it opens. That's all the explanation is. There's absolutely nothing else. This is gonna be a rough one. Stelter Helter is the worst thing I've seen since Darcy's Wing. Boy, that was a fun 3 months of blissful ignorance to just how bad a show can get. Though it'd be more accurate if I said this was the anime equivalent of the Ebola Files, with animation that's about on par, and writing that's somehow even less self-aware. At least the Ebola Files attempted to give an opening. That wasn't my editing, that's just how this show is. Basically, the plot of this show is that a bootleg angel appears in the middle of Tokyo and the Altamira Agency is told to fight it off. What's the Altamira Agency? Why is there a giant metapod? Why is it that the nightmare only begins once I awaken? So Virgil over here is apparently in a relationship with one of the pilots outside of work, so obviously that means that him sending her in to fight the squid first is preferential treatment, even when he gives a completely reasonable explanation for it. This entire thing feels like watching a terrible episode of Gundam Seed out of context. So several times the Mets get hit and there's just no animation, and also the Mets aren't actually protecting the pilots at all. It's more just like a robo-skeleton but nowhere near as cool. But like the robots they just slide around when they get hit, like someone used the statue tool in Darius mod then just kind of moved it around some, you know what I mean. And then they reveal that the pilots were actually artificially made anyway, which means knockoff Virgil was seen up to a 2-year-old. Right, so moving on. From this point on, 2 of them die, I think. It was unclear. And they have some weird flashbacks, like if this was an actual show and not just, Death Incarnate. I'm pretty sure that there's only 2 possible explanations for this show. Number 1, money laundering. Or maybe like what Randy Pitchford did back when they took the money to make Colonial Marines and spent it all on Borderlands. Maybe that's how this got made? What studio was this? It sure didn't go into their other shows, cause like, the only thing I can think of is that either they spent it all very poorly, or whatever money they had and made just went straight into cocaine. That's all I can think of, and it would also explain a lot of things about this show. Option 2 is that the director was just absolutely clueless. Like, this feels like when you're 11 years old and you go try to make a machinima in Minecraft or Halo or whatever else, and you have this idea in your head of what you're making, and in your head it's the coolest thing you've ever seen, and it's gonna be the best, and it's gonna revolutionize the genre. But then a few years later you find your old Imgur albums and your old unlisted YouTube videos, and you realize that it's just complete nonsense. Either one of these options are both pretty likely, honestly. So either the squid or the camera gets destroyed, it was really unclear which, and I think they were trying to do the thing from Evangelion where there's the blood flying out of the angel after it dies, but they couldn't actually afford to animate the blood, so it's just like a CGI object floating there, not actually moving or anything. And also I don't know where it came from, because when the thing died there was no blood. And then it skips to a year later and ends on the cliffhanger that there's more of them. If this is meant to tease a sequel, I feel offended. I feel offended that anyone even suggests that something that's just pathetic would ever get a sequel. I feel sorry for whoever did the music for this, because that stuff's just tarnished by having it be in this mess. It's not even bad music, it's just, it's in this, of all things. This is the worst thing I've watched on this channel. During Darcy's win, I was like crying, laughing. I was having a good time during that first episode at least. During this, I didn't even laugh, I just stared in shock. I was like a Lovecraft protagonist staring at the eldritch horror, like my mind couldn't process what I was looking at and I needed more information on what I was seeing and how to understand that it exists, but the show wasn't giving me anything. Don't watch Skelter+Heaven. Just don't. It's not worth it. It's not even funny bad. Don't watch this.